Hey guys, welcome to another All Bass Creations Effects tutorials, demos, and review. Today we're going to be going over pretty much the best way to set up a bigger pedal board and some cheaper options, some things that'll just get you through. And so, as usual, please subscribe, like, and share. I definitely would really appreciate that. Um, so, let's go ahead and get into it. This is my bass flat, nothing on it, completely dry. So that's my bass flat. Um, so first things first, I have this entire pedal board running plus my Zoom B6. That's what you see down there on the right corner of the screen. That's the iPad. We're showing you all the effects that I'm running on the Zoom B6, which is pretty much an IR, a limiter, in a room, which is a reverb. So we'll get into that in a second. Um, let's do first things first. Even when all of this stuff is off, the only thing that's usually running is the Spectracomp TC Electronic Spectracomp, which is a multi-band compressor. Sounds really amazing. Here's a little bit of that. So, as you can hear, sounds amazing. It gives you a nice, very nice, even tone. Um, and you can do anywhere from super light compression to heavy, like super squash sound, with that one little unit. Plus, you could just beam it in through the Tone Print app on your phone as well. Different presets, and you can also do custom stuff with that. So, that little compressor, even though it's small, it's right here. That little tiny thing up there in the corner. So, running into that, I have three, I mean, two three-way effects loops. So this silver box here and also this gold box here. Both of those are three-way switches. I believe I got them from T-Tone on Amazon. They run you about $40, and they're amazing. They're amazing because it allows me to have all these pedals, but breaks them up into different effects loops. So with both of them, I have a 6 effects loop. So my signal comes into this the silver one, and runs into the gold one, and then straight to the Spectracomp into the B6. Everything on the B6 right now is bypassed, and then through the XLR or whatever outputs I want to do from there. And I have an effects send um, on the effects loop before the IR to send that to my amp. So the whole pedal board goes to my amp before it goes to the system, and that way I don't have the IR and the limiter and all that stuff that I'm using for my in ears in the house to on my amp, because I don't need a cabinet simulation when I'm using the cabinet, of course. So all right, so moving on. First up, first loop would be this green one on the silver effects loop here, and all that's running is the OC5 Boss OC5 brown pedal there. Then you also have the MXR Poly Blue Octave. You have the EHX Electro Harmonics Hog 2 and the Zoom MS60B. And so basically, this is like my octaver slash bass synth section. And pretty much it runs into the input of the OC5, goes through that whole chain, and goes back to the looper. And all that can be taken out or put in with just a click of that one switch over there in the corner, bottom right corner of the pedal board. So let's go ahead and hear a little bit of those, and as well as this effects pedal, this expression pedal here is part of that, as well as this little box here. That's the presets for the Hog 2. So, let's see. This is one of my general OC5 settings. It's pretty much set up so I can do chordal things. And as you can hear, it's set up so it's just the lower octave is affecting only the lowest frequencies of my bass. So you can hear it went out there, and the upper octave of the octaver is affecting my entire frequency range of my bass, and then there's the dry sound as well. So very useful for chordal things, solo playing. If you're looping, it's very useful as well. Skip ahead a little bit to the first loop, just because I'm going to do a bit of tone shaping with that. And for that, I have just an effects loop for the preamps. So real quick, I'm gonna just give you a rundown of what each effects loops consist of, just so we can get that out the way. So I told you what the first one consists of: OC5, Poly Blue, Hog 2, and the MS60B. That's the first green loop on the silver effects three-way switcher. Then on the second loop, the red one, we have all my pad synth stuff and my vocoder stuff, and that would be the Key 9, the Male 9, the Ravis Sitar, and the V256 vocoder. Again, that's the Key 9, Male 9, Ravis Sitar into the vocoder, V256 vocoder back into the effects loop there. And so, next one, we have the filter section, which is just 3 pedals, and it consists of the bass balls, the MXR bass envelope filter, and the blurst, electroharmonics blurst, and back into the effects loop, right? Bam. Then we get to the preamp effects loop, which consists of the Eden Aguilar AG preamp and the Ampeg SGT DI back into the gold effects loop, green loop. And the red loop, lastly but not least, you have the Zoom MS50G into the looper, and then back into the Jam Man Solo XT looper. Back into the effects loop, second, the red one on the gold switcher here. And then I use the last one there, the blue one on the gold one, as like a mute switch for all the channels in case I ever need just a kill switch. So let's get back to it. So I'm gonna kick on the preamp section, and right now I have on the Aguilar preamp. So of course the Aguilar is a very nice even tone there. Had this thing flying back and forth here. But we're going to kick back on the first effects loop, octave loop. And we're going to kick on the OC5, the brown one here. So as you can see, you can get some very lush chords with that OC5. It's great as well for just synth-based stuff, but I use my Poly Blue for a lot of that synth-based stuff these days because it's a little different. You know, OC2 has been kind of overdone so much. The Poly Blue is a little newer of a sound, a little slightly different. It sounds blue versus sounding brown. I don't know. That's just how it sounds to me. But so even right here, I was still so far we have on the OC5 the Aguilar AG preamp and the TC Electronics Spectracomp, and now I'm going to kick on the effects I have on the Zoom B6 because running to the house I would have that as well as recordings as well. So with that, we have the IR. So let me switch this up here. So we got the IR. This is what it sounds like with just adding the IR to all of this. So as you can see, you start adding the IR, start sounding like you got a bass amp in there. Add a little limiter on there. Give you my settings for that. So that's pretty much OC5 sound with the limiter added on, and then the room make. And I use this little bit of reverb. Um, those are the settings for that. Um, I do a little bit of that just to give me in my in ears, especially like it don't make it sound like it's right up on my ears. Gives me a little bit of air to it. So as you can see, with everything combined, you get a nice full sound there, and that's just with the OC5 Aguilar preamp with the TC Electronic Spectracomp into the Zoom B6, which is running, and it's running a volume pedal as well. Volume pedal into a send, going to the amp, and then sending it, continue to process the signal through an IR, a limiter, and a room sound. So, and this gives me a really versatile setup. You know, um, we'll continue to talk about why, but having these three preamps here, as well as this Zoom B6 running different IR setup. Pretty much all my IRs, I have four main IRs I use for a show, and it pretty much allows me to have, what's it, like five different amp head sounds, preamp sounds, along with four different bass cabinets. So gives me a ton of different flexibility with the sounds, just with the amps, type thing. So let's continue. Let me see. You take that same thing and you just switch out the Aguilar and put in the Ampeg, and it's a whole different sound. If you switch, you know, eating, I use this more as my slap and pop sound, but I do a little bit of that too. So let's go back to the Aguilar real quick and switch through some of these IR settings I have here. And all this is just to give you some options with the sound, to see how it kind of affects the sound. It's a little bit of this is the first IR I'm running is Aguilar 410s with a tweeter. Right? Now I'm running an Ampeg 115. Now we're doing an Ampeg with 410s in the tweeter. And last, we have the Ampeg 810s. And all this is, like, again, just the IR. Only thing changing is the IRs on the B6. All the limiter and room settings are the same for these. These are the settings for the SVT 410s with a tweeter. And these are the settings for the Ampeg 115. So, just so you guys will have that. In case you have a B6 and you love it. So, and of course, each one of those IRs can be matched with any one of these preamp settings, I have here. But let's move on. So let's move on to the Poly Blue, which I have set up for more of a synth type sound. And, if you want a slightly bigger sound with that same exact sound, switch on like the Ampeg. Or the Eden. And that last one you heard there, I kind of circulated through them. The last one was the Aguilar with the um, treble and bass boost on. So we can take that same sound there, switch it through different IRs. That's the 115 Ampeg 410s. And mind you, with these monophonic octavers, you want to have something like a very mid-rangey sound to your thing. And you want to go with something like your bridge pickup. I only have a bridge. I only have one pickup. It's just this bridge pickup. This is just a ramp for me. So you can also add a little octave up with the poly blue. You can also add 2 octaves up or 2 octaves down. You got a phaser on there. You got the dry signal, and you can run this as polyphonic, and you can also add distortion.